Good morning and welcome to Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Gregory Cook and I am pleased to be serving as worship associate this morning alongside our minister, the Reverend Zachary Vinson. Thanks to all of you for coming out this morning, on this morning that includes some sun and some rain and some bluster, which feels so much like home in the Northwest. Thanks to the setup team, the tech team, and the sound team for making this space ready for us this morning to gather once again in person. Before we move further into the service, let's pause to acknowledge that members of our congregation occupy the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Coast Salish tribes. The homelands of the Suquamish, Duwamish, Klallam, and Chimicum people were ceded under duress through the Point Elliott and Point No Point treaties. We affirm indigenous sovereignty, both past and present. This acknowledgement does not substitute for the need to build authentic relationships with modern-day members of these tribes and to learn about their living culture and history. Due to COVID precautions, we will once again not be passing baskets, which I know is most of our favorite part of the service. Instead, there are baskets set up on the tables, on the stools back in the back. They have little chalices drawn on them. They're very cubical and white. Your contributions help nourish the spiritual growth of our community through weekly worship and ongoing programs that cultivate connection, belonging, sharing, and caring. If you feel called to make a gift to Cedars, please do so by placing a donation in one of the cubicle boxes. You can also visit our website to make a contribution online. Your generosity is greatly appreciated. Cedars is committed to being a welcoming and inclusive community. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, and skin tones that come together in your uniqueness, we welcome you. In all the ways you experience and express gender, in the beauty of who and how you love, we welcome you. With all the religious and ethical traditions that inform your spiritual life, we welcome you. You are invited to join us today and always with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. Now, let us enter a time of centering as our guest, Rochelle Lene, shares our prelude.
Good morning. Before I give the words for our call to worship today, I'd like to share a few announcements of things that are happening in our congregation. The first is just to let everyone know today after the service, if you would like to chat with myself or some of the members of our board or just other people, we're going to be meeting outside here under the tents. So if you'd like to linger, if you're a new visitor and would like to chat with people, get to know me, we'll be out there. So please join us for that time. The second announcement that I wanted to share is that I have been working with Diana Peters' family to begin the process for planning her memorial service. We are still working out some of the specifics of the day, but we have set a date of March 12th at Eagle Harbor Congregational Church. I'm meeting with Diana's daughter, Julia, on Tuesday, and we'll have more details, and we'll send them out to the whole of the Cedars community. But just wanted to give everyone a heads up about that date so you make sure to save it on your calendars. More details will come. The third announcement and final one I'll offer this morning is I am excited to share with you, after a lot of conversation with the board, our faith formation committee, our music committee, that we have extended a job offer for what is now a combined position of faith formation and music coordinator. It was a new way of trying to conceive of this, and we got an applicant who many of you already know, Archer Phillip, applied to the job and was interviewed, and after much consideration, we have agreed to extend an offer to Archer. And so Archer will be joining the Cedars staff team starting, I believe his first day will be March 10th. So there'll be more details coming. Yeah, this is an exciting, there'll be more details coming. I think it's exciting to have someone else joining the staff to help share in all the things that we've been doing. There's a lot that Cedars has been doing recently. And so to have some more staff help. And when Archer gets here, I hope you all take the time to welcome him back and help him get settled in this new role. So that's the business side. Personally, this week, I am feeling just a little bit weary. I think the news of what is happening in Ukraine and the realization that this could be an escalating conflict, the reality that we are approaching the 2-year mark of when COVID-19 first came into our awareness. It's been a long 2 years. And recognizing these things, as well as all of the other things happening in the world, I feel a little bit weary. And yet, here I am with all of you. And that makes me feel just a little bit better, knowing that there are other people that can gather together to care for and support one another in these wearying times, as we've done for years now. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for helping to support me, and hopefully I help to support all of you as well. And with that, I want to invite us into this time of worship with these words by Lawrence McGinty. To this house we bring our boldest dreams, seeking here the inspiration and strength to make them be. To this house we come hoping to bury broken dreams, to be sustained through their pain and discover new ones amidst their tears. We come here lonely, isolated from meaningful human contact, searching for warmth and closeness and care, needing to grow beyond plateaus of commonplace. We seek here challenges and commitments productive of greater wholeness and deeper meaning. We come intense and constructed, hoping for encouragement to shed our pretenses and to be ourselves. Filled with despair and self-doubt, we seek affirmations, prodding us to say yes to ourselves and to life. Somehow, always putting happiness ahead of ourselves, we enter into this place trusting that what happens here will enable us to make and accept a little bit of it now, today. Strange place, this house. Here we cry, sing, laugh, hurt, dance, touch, serve, celebrate, grow, search, doubt, hope, rejoice, pray, trust, care, learn, think, wonder, be, become. Yes, this morning, to this house, we come. Come, let us worship together.
Multiple times when I was leading classes for our kids in the religious education program, I would hear a particular phrase. It was usually a boy using it, and I'm pretty sure that it is familiar to all of you. The phrase, throw like a girl. It's odd how often it comes up in groups of kids. It happened so often that I developed a standard response. Like a girl, I would say? You mean really cool? However, it's not only kids that use this expression. Once I was talking to a friend at work and I asked, "Can you throw left-handed?" And he responded, "No, left-handed, I throw like a girl." We have the capacity to understand the meaning of this phrase in its entirety. To not throw well, to not put our bodies and our shoulders into the force behind the ball. We have the capacity then to work backwards and draw conclusions about what it is to be a girl. In his essay, Politics and the English Language, George Orwell wrote of language, "It becomes ugly and inaccurate because our thoughts are foolish. But the slovenliness of our language makes it easier for us to have foolish thoughts." It was when I was reading this essay in college that I first became familiar with this idea that language informs our thought processes. The basic idea that what we think is limited by what we already know how to express. And it was with this understanding that I once tried to convince my own children that when we had burgers for dinner, it was only natural that they would be made out of lentils or farro, or maybe even the garden variety that come in a box from the store. It was the fake burgers that were made out of meat. This attempt to redefine burger was unsuccessful. And I admit, my attempt to redefine like a girl, that part of that expression was also unsuccessful. Each time I said, "Oh, you mean really cool?" the kids would look at me, uncomprehending. The phrase already had a meaning. They knew what it was, and I was the one who was confused. I dedicate the lighting of our flaming chalice to using language deliberately. Please join with me in repeating our affirmation. As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness because that is how we will all become the best that we can be.
Thank you for that music. That song, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, has been a song that throughout the pandemic I have taken a lot of solace in, and to hear it played in person feels good. So thank you. I have a story for all of you. When I was in college, I made a friend. He was someone who was in the same English program I was in community college. His friend was named Jared, and we're still good friends. I see him every once in a while and interact on Facebook. But Jared introduced me to an idea, to a hobby that I never really knew existed before I met him. And that hobby was growing pumpkins competitively. I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like when you go during the fall, you go in front of the grocery store and they oftentimes have a big pumpkin on display, and all those pumpkins at the fair have to come from somewhere, and someone brought them to compete. But it never really clicked for me that people actually did this, and that it was something that involved strategies and techniques. And as I got to know Jared, and I was curious about what all is involved with growing pumpkins. And he lived on a farm down in Grays Harbor County in the Wishkov River Valley. And so I came out to his farm. It's a place that has a little creek that runs through it. And so he explained to me about how when he started, it was just that they were growing pumpkins in their garden. His family had their garden. And then one year, a particular pumpkin grew kind of big, and they were proud of it. And so the next year, the idea came to him, and he decided, well, can we grow it bigger? And over the years, he learned that there were certain locations that were better than others. So Jared learned that he could go, and if he planted the pumpkin vines down by the little creek that ran through the back of their field, the access to water actually allowed the pumpkins to grow faster, and it was less work for him, that he didn't have to go every day and water these pumpkins, that they would grow in a way such they would draw it right from the creek. And he learned, too, that there are certain times that you have to put a board under the pumpkin, and you put sand on it. So as the pumpkin is growing, it reduces the friction so it can kind of move a little bit. Otherwise, you risk it maybe moving and snapping off the vine, or any number of other things. There's a way you rotate them, I learned, so that way flat spots don't develop where you don't want them. So Jared developed all of these strategies for growing pumpkins. But the one that he swore by the most was he said it was important that you read to your pumpkins. Jared would read to his pumpkins. And it turns out this wasn't an original idea to him. There's actually a children's book about a farmer who grows pumpkins and reads to them as a way of making them grow. I didn't know that at the time, so I'm like, this is weird. But it turns out in the competitive pumpkin growing field, a lot of people read to their pumpkins. Most of the time, I've gathered people read children's books, stories that you might read to a growing child. Jared tended to read his pumpkins poetry, which I was fond of, and I did read at least a poem or two to one of his pumpkins one time. But I found it very curious that in the pumpkin growing competition in that world, people have said that reading to your pumpkins, affirming them, being positive, speaking to them, they believe it causes them to grow better. I have no idea if this is true or not. But I think we all know that there are places in our life where affirming the positive, affirming those qualities we want in people, does help them grow better. Is it true of pumpkins? I don't know. But I do believe it's true of each of us. So consider, what are the stories? What are the affirmations? What are the tales that we tell each other today and the days ahead? And that is my story. I want to invite us into a spiritual practice together. And it's a practice that comes out of the Buddhist traditions. In Buddhism, there's an idea, a meditation, that's called metta meditation. And it's the belief of, it's a practice in which we fill ourselves with loving kindness, with compassion. And then after filling ourselves, to imagine it radiating out into the world. It might go, if you want to join me in this, please take your hand, whichever hand you're comfortable with, and just place it on your heart. And take a breath. Notice your heartbeat. Notice yourself present. Let us together say, may I be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. And sit for a second. Feel yourself filled with that loving kindness and compassion. And extend your other hand however you feel comfortable, up in your lap or out in the room. Imagine that same loving kindness from your heart flowing out. And say with me, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be filled with loving kindness. And now with both hands out, up and extended as if you're giving or receiving some great gift. Let us say together, may we be filled with loving kindness. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be filled with loving kindness. May it be so. So, the first Sunday of this month, when I preached, we spent some time reflecting on Sojourner Truth's 1861 speech delivered in Akron, Ohio. This speech raised the question, ain't I a woman too? A question she raised to a white audience in a way that built a coalition that linked Black women's suffrage with the suffrage movement of white women, building a coalition, setting in motion a new way of social organizing and advocacy. The second Sunday of the month, I reflected on Lucille Clifton's poem, New Bones, a poem that posits the strength of engaging in intergenerational struggle, connecting the struggle of women like Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, with her own grandmother's struggle here in the 1950s in America. In this poem, Lucille talked about how there is power in connecting ourselves with the struggles of those who came before. Today, I want to explore a particular phrase, Black girl magic. It's a phrase that has come into use in the last few years among many people in my age cohort, many millennials, and many of my friends who are people of color use this phrase. But before I explore this phrase, Black girl magic specifically, I want to take a little bit of a detour. So almost every time I come into the Cedar Center to go into my office, I notice that there is a bumper sticker that is affixed to the inside of the Faith Formation office at the Cedar Center. It's a yellow bumper sticker. It has some black writing on it. I think it has a little flower with, it's either a watering can or the sun like shining down, raining down on it. And the text of this bumper sticker says, "Praise the children and they will grow." Praise the children and they will grow. And I only notice it because the color really stands out. Like it's sitting in the window, it stands out, and so it's hard for me to miss it almost every time. And every time I see it, I find myself enter a little bit of an internal debate. Praise the children and they will grow. Well, what does that mean? Praise the children and they will grow. And I find myself get caught up first on, well, what does the word praise mean? And should everything be praised? And then I find my mind going to this place, well, what about the children who don't get praised? Don't they still grow in some way? And I go through this debate. And I think when I do that, I actually miss the point of this particular bumper sticker. I don't think the word praise needs to be up for debate. I think if I just did what us UUs are good at doing, which is to do a little of my own intellectual translation, I might say, oh, affirm the young people and they will grow. Bring positivity to young people's lives and they will grow in positive ways. And so I find myself always debating about this, but the truth is, regardless of what the meaning is, I do think that affirmations are powerful. Affirmations are powerful things. Just a few moments ago, engaging in the metta meditation, the affirmation of filling ourselves with loving kindness and then sharing that loving kindness. I don't know about all of you, but for me, I feel something shift in me. I feel my body calm. I feel connected to people. Just by saying these words, affirming something, and letting myself believe it, I feel a change. Or recently, I was in meeting with my therapist, and we were talking about, I think many of us get those times where we have that self-doubt that comes bubbling up, Those voices that say things like, oh, you're not good enough, you're not going to succeed at this, you're not smart enough. Whatever it is, that we oftentimes have these negative messages that come up that start limiting us, that prevent us from trying things, that instill fear in us. And so in talking with my therapist about some of these experiences I've been having, he has suggested, well, let's create a new affirmation. Let's create a positive affirmation to replace some of that negative self-talk. And so we did. And I'm not going to share that affirmation because it has a swear word in it. But it works for me, and I find myself going into that place, and I'm like, I rock. Like, I got this. And that shift in affirming myself instead of letting that self-doubt be what is ruling me, it's a real powerful force. Affirmations are powerful. Another point before we explore this phrase of black girl magic is I believe the emotions are contagious. I believe that emotions are contagious. We spent a lot of time reflecting on contagions in the last 2 years, and I do believe, though, emotions in a not entirely dissimilar way can be like germs or viruses, that we can pass them on to each other. I'm sure there's been a point in your life, at some point, I hope at least, where you have maybe been out in your day, going about, rushing around, doing errands, and someone makes eye contact and just smiles. And it might brighten you up a little bit. Or someone does that small, simple thing that we talked about in December, those simple gifts, a small act of kindness that, for whatever reason, just it hits your heart. And you feel yourself open from that. I think there's also times where we have been in settings and maybe someone is anxious and we feel our own anxiety start to rise. We feel our own sense of dis-ease, that tension start to rise. Or maybe someone is angry and our response is to get angry back. Emotions are contagious. So, 2 points. Affirmations are powerful and emotions are contagious. So turning to this phrase, black girl magic. And I wanted to end the month here because I think we can see an actual progression. I can't do this. We can see a progression from where we started at the beginning of the month with Sojourner Truth, asking the question, ain't I a woman too? To turning to today, where young black women are affirming magic, black girl magic. This intergenerational struggle as it is unfolded from 1861 until today, while there are still some things that remain the same, and racism is still a force in our world, there has been some change. The question is no longer, ain't I a woman, but it is an affirmation of someone's power, their agency. This phrase, black girl magic, I first became aware of in 2015 when my best friend Amanda started wearing a shirt that had a silhouette of a black woman with an afro, and it said black girl magic underneath. And I loved it. And I asked Amanda, and she told me it's part of a new media campaign. There was a woman named, her name was Beverly Bond, who in 2014 launched a social media campaign aimed at empowering young black women and giving them a positive self-image to sort of undercut all of the negativity. So this would have been at the time following, we had the Trayvon Martin was killed. We had a number of other shootings that took place of black children in our country in parks. And so this was at a time where the narrative around young black people was that they were scary. And that's the way that the trial of Trayvon Martin portrayed, or the media portrayed the events. And In response to this, Beverly Bond wanted to create positive messaging. And so she launched this campaign, and there was clothing, and there was a whole bunch of other merchandise, and it became a phrase, a hashtag on social media. And when when young Black women would have a success, you would see a post that said, hashtag Black Girl Magic. That affirmation of what is possible. To think about that, to be that power of affirmation, as we've explored about it, and recognizing what affirmation can do in our life, this shift to me represents that next link in that chain of intergenerational struggle. I also think that beyond just the community of Black women who affirm Black Girl Magic, this affirmation has some wisdom for all of us. It's an affirmation that, while in different words, tries to express that sentiment of praise the children and they will grow. Speak positively to the children and they will grow in positive ways. Empower the children and they'll change the world. It's a similar sentiment, different form, but the function is the same. The phrase Black Girl Magic affirms the inherent worth and dignity of young Black women. It affirms a truth about our humanity. It's a similar affirmation, I think, that as the one that Sojourner Truth dreamed of hearing. A response to the question, ain't I a woman too? A response that she hoped was yes. I think that is what this phrase does. It continues this dialogue that has moved over time, linking generations of people in this struggle together. I think that it's important as a people of faith for us too to recognize the power of such struggles, the power of connecting through generations. We are part of a tradition that stretches through time. Some of our history is great and bold, and we've been leaders of justice. Some of it has been problematic, even embarrassing. We still wrestle with those things. But I think when we turn to the examples that we've considered this month, we can see that if we are willing to wrestle with them, to locate ourselves in that chain of existence, there's power. And that when we affirm that power and that we let that power radiate out from us, it's possible to change the world. So I hope you'll consider going forward, where are the places that you can affirm people, whether they're children or not? Where are the places in your life where you can spread some of that positivity, whether it's with other children or not? What are the affirmations that you need to hear to help you realize your worth and dignity? So that in realizing your own worth and dignity, you can in turn recognize the worth and dignity of others around us. To the glory of life.
So we're at that point in the service where we're supposed to be extinguishing this flame, but I don't see any way to extinguish it, and I'm not pinching it because I'm not brave. You're going to get it? Okay. Please repeat after me. Sorry, yeah. Please repeat after me as we extinguish our flaming chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. The warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
But our service to the world and one another begins anew. May we go forth from this time filled with the loving kindness of this community and radiated out into the world. May it be so.